जैसा कि हमारे जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स लगातार इतने दिनों से जुड़ रहे हैं, उनको उनका स्वागत करते हुए और ये जो हमारा कार्यक्रम है उसके बारे में थोड़ा-सा बताते हुए कि यूजीसी के इनिशिएटिव से डॉक्टर बी.आर. अम्बेडकर सामाजिक विज्ञान विश्वविद्यालय महू के जेंडर स्टडीज डिपार्टमेंट, आईक्यूएसी सेल, जेंडर सेंसिटाइजेशन कमेटी, इंटरनल कंप्लेंट कमेटी के द्वारा पूरे 1 माह के जेंडर सेंसिटाइजेशन और रिलेटेड इश्यूज पर वेब सिम्पोजियम, वेब लेक्चर और वेबिनार आयोजित किए जा रहे हैं। इसकी निरंतरता की इस कड़ी में आज हमारे बीच सम्माननीय प्रोफेसर वीके मल्होत्रा सर हैं, जो आईसीएसएसआर न्यू दिल्ली के मेंबर सेक्रेटरी हैं। सर का स्वागत करते हुए कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाते हैं और आज के वेलकम नोट के लिए मैं ब्राउस परिवार के प्रोफेसर डीन डीके वर्मा सर और आईक्यूएसी सेल के चेयरपर्सन भी हैं सर। मैं सर का स्वागत करते हुए सर से निवेदन करता हूं कि वेलकम एड्रेस के लिए आएं।
Thank you, Dr. Manoj. At the outset, I welcome Honorable Member Secretary of Indian Council of Social Science Research, most respected Professor V.K. Malhotra sir. He is our keynote speaker, eminent guest today, who will be delivering a talk on women empowerment in India, key issues. I have the honor and privilege to welcome and introduce our eminent guest speaker today, Professor Malhotra, who is a professor of economics and has made a lot of sound contributions in economics. As a faculty of CCS University Merit and serving very important positions at the university level and at the national level, his main interest has been on the economics of education, economics of development, and he has been involved in many policy making bodies, authorities of universities and renowned social science research institutions in the country. He has been the honorable executive of many international research boards and associations as well. His own research work leading to PhD was on economics of fertilizer subsidies, and he has published dozens of papers in national and international journals in the areas of his interest. The important thing about Professor V.K. Malhotra is giving the direction to this social science research in our country. As his term as member secretary of ICSR, he has not only guided the course for Indian social science, but also innovated many programs, and under his tenure, the very important scheme on impactful research in social sciences was launched, and thereafter he has been instrumental in developing the Indian social science at the global level in competition with the other countries, and as an institution of social science.
सर आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही प्रोफेसर वर्मा सर।
अभी आवाज आ रही है?
जी जी।
हेलो, हाँ, मेरी आवाज शुरू से नहीं आ रही थी क्या?
आ रही थी सर, अभी बीच में।
Okay, तो we welcome Professor Malhotra ji, and he has been very renowned economist, contributing a lot of sound contributions academically, and he has been instrumental at ICSR to give directions to the social science research in the country. As I said about the impactful research, this particular scheme is making India at global map in social science research. We are very happy to have such eminent speaker with us, Honorable Member Secretary of ICSR, who himself is an academician, well-known economist, and he has got his own understanding about the issues. And today, as the convener has introduced, our moderators have introduced about the topic, women empowerment in India, certainly many academically enriching ideas will get from Professor V.K. Malhotra, identifying the key issues, and more importantly, I would be requesting with a warm welcome to Professor Malhotra to give us guidance on some policy interventions. I would like to inform you, sir, we have been established by the state government of Madhya Pradesh. We were under your umbrella for more than 3 decades almost, and now we are the first University of Social Sciences in the country. And ICSSR is the apex body of social science research in the country. So this is the very proper and apt platform to discuss social science issues. And I would request to have such kind of confluence with the ICR and our university brows in social science research. We have developed the competence because in the policy intervention research we have contributed a lot. And now we have focused on gender issues, gender studies. Sir, we are making a draft for World Women Policy, World Gender Policy, and we are conducting major research projects on this direction. So your guidance on today's topic, women empowerment in India, certainly will enrich us and will guide us to evolve this draft policy in a more fruitful and sound manner. So our request would be, sir, how we can have more integration with the ICSR, our institution. Your ICSR is the body, apex body of social science research, and ours is the first University of Social Sciences in the country. So, how we both together, these institutions, can develop the social science research in our country and give an impactful research to the world, to the global world, and particularly in this global pandemic will be more meaningful. So, with all this, I humbly and request you, sir, to kindly deliver your talk on women empowerment in India key issues. I welcome you, sir, for this. Now, hand over to the moderator for further proceedings, please.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। निश्चित तौर पर सामाजिक विज्ञान विश्वविद्यालय होने के नाते हम सर को भारतीय सामाजिक विज्ञान अनुसंधान परिषद से सर का मार्गदर्शन हमारे लिए बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण होगा। मैं बहुत ही आदर के साथ सर को आमंत्रित करता हूँ। आदरणीय सर।
I think I am audible. Am I audible?
Sir, yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, thank you, moderator, Dr. Gupta. I could see Professor Ashish Shukla also, who happens to be the Vice Chancellor of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University of Social Science, Mau. And I'm thankful to Dr. D.K. Verma also for delivering his welcome address. There are few issues before I make a formal beginning. Let me talk about my relationship with this university of yours, of course, as Member Secretary of Indian Council of Social Science Research. We know it very well that Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar Institute of Social Science used to be part of ICSSR earlier, and a few years back it became a university in itself, and of course, as Dr. D.K. Verma did say it, that it became the first social science university of the country. I've been personally deeply connected with Professor Shukla also in many ways, right? And we have been discussing what can be done, what is happening, and what seems to be the future of social science and gender studies in India in particular, in fact. There are many issues which would definitely need a very sharp analysis in understanding those issues and reaching the truth before we say anything about some of the very significant aspects. Uh, so, before I begin, let me congratulate and compliment the university for undertaking this initiative of organizing few lectures or maybe month-long lectures on gender studies itself. I know Professor Shukla has got a very deep interest in gender studies. Whenever we meet and wherever we have been together, we have discussed those issues in detail. And maybe even in days to come, we'll be discussing these issues in still more detail. Uh, there are few things which I would like to say. Of course, this technology that we are making use of today, because most of the seminars have got converted into webinars now, and most of us for lectures, etc., are making use of different platforms given by technology. COVID-19 has definitely made or brought about certain difficulties in life, but it has definitely made us aware about the use of technology in academics, in researches, and also in academic interactions. So, and those of us who know classes or who are concerned about classes, training, they have been making use of this technology in for classroom training, etc. kind of thing. Number of places, I mean, I know number of portals of the government where online training or classes have begun. In fact, number of Indian Institute of participating in this month-long, uh, I will say, initiative or scheme. Maybe it results into something more than what we are thinking right now. There is a famous saying in Hindi, somebody Agge wrote perhaps, if I'm correctly reminded, ना, एक हद तक कहानी हम बनाते हैं, उससे आगे कहानी हमें बनाती है, और जिस हद से आगे कहानी हमें बनाती है, क्या उस बिंदु की पहचान हमें आती है. तो this is I think something very very important, because idea may have started with, let's say, little deep interest of the vice chancellor herself, but maybe it goes further and it touches some of those dimensions which have remained so far unexplored and unearthed and untalked about. And these are in future documented also, so that important policy quarters may make use of all these discussions in days to come. I read my name written as a keynote speaker, but I can understand that since this is a month-long affair, and around that, so many people have spoken about the dimensions maybe I'm going to speak about, but I'm just sharing some of the views that I feel about the whole issue of women empowerment in general and women empowerment in India in particular. And this is why we have tried to keep it little broad-based, like women empowerment in India, the key issues. We all know that women empowerment is all about equipping and enabling women to make decisions of life and which have got their impact on their personal life and also the society, and if we talk in a national context, maybe the life of a nation. Uh, Many people have been using the word, I hope I have got 35 minutes with me to go ahead. Is it like this? Right. So many people have been using different terms. I opted for little softer terms, in fact, and this is why I made use of the women empowerment rather than talking about feminism, or even I mean, I'm not trying to say that there is any word which should be, while making use of, which can be kept at bay, but the point is the words have to be used in a way that they convey the right spirit in which you want to discuss those issues. the struggle for women's right, all of us understand it, has been a historical and a social movement both, and women have waged their wars or waged their struggles for political, economic, and social rights. Uh, I was interested in knowing the difference between different terms also, and I went through a document of World Health Organization which says that sex is biologically defined, but gender is a social construct. And gender is based upon several things, which also include self-perception and expression of an individual, apart from the social construction of the whole idea. As far as the struggle of the women is concerned, we know that this struggle has passed through many phases in the history. And they include political movements, social movements to define, establish political, economic, personal, and social gender equality. So the whole struggle has been about that. There has been virtually a war against the gender stereotypes and to put the gender in the right framework. We know all campaigns or all struggles, they have been around one or the other issue that I'm trying to underline now, which have been about campaign for women's right to vote, hold public office, right to work in different kind of uh, public or private sector settings, to earn wages and to earn fair wages or equal pay, to own property, to receive education, to enter into contracts, to have equal rights within marriage, to have maternity leave. Maybe there are still more issues which I'll be talking about when I talk about the different waves of these struggles, in fact. Normally speaking, the whole struggle related to women's rights is viewed in terms of four waves in the world. And the first wave, we know, relates to 19th and 20th century developments which were largely concentrated on the women's right to vote. Many of us might be aware that Charles Fourier first used the term feminism in 1837, and then it appeared in France and Netherlands in 1872. The word found its expression in 1819 in Britain, in 1910 in United States, and in Oxford Dictionary it got included in 1852. As far as waves are concerned, as I said, that the first wave largely concentrated on women's right to vote, or as is said to be universal suffrage. The first wave, apart from universal suffrage, also included the issues like promotion of equal contract, marriage, parenting, and property rights for women. There came an act in UK which is known as UK Custody of Infant Act in 1839, which introduced the tender years doctrine for child custody arrangements and gave women the right to custody of their children for the first time. So we can imagine that before 1839, even in Britain, the custody of child was not given to the women. And then came the issues, as I said, apart from suffrage, the reproductive and economic rights of women. If we talk about women's suffrage, it began in Britain's Australasian colonies at the close of 19th century. with the self-governing colonies of New Zealand granting women the right to vote in 1893, and in South Australia granting female suffrage in 1895. This was followed by Australia in 1902. In Britain, this right was given in 1980 under the Representation of Peoples Act. And the initial riders were that women over the age of 30 and who owned property were given the right to vote. In 1928, it was extended to women, all women above 21 years of age. This is how some of the international developments were taking place. In India, we know that women were given this right to vote or suffrage right from day one after adoption of the constitution in the country. We know, and there are a number of developments in France also. It happened in 1944 only. And if I talk about the second wave of struggle, it is started with many writings. Many of us have heard the famous name of Simone de Beauvoir, a definite kind of outlook to have a look at the women and her popular contribution, The Second Sex, which appeared in 1949, talked about the feminist sense of looking at the things or looking at injustice also. The second wave largely was about the campaign for the reforms of family laws, which gave husbands controls over their wives. In France, the married women did not receive the right to work without their husband's permission until 1965. And very importantly, and it must definitely be to the surprise of all of us, that marital exemption, the rape issue, also got a little prominence in second wave of the struggle. And the marital exemption earlier, as per earlier law, the marital exemption in case of a petition by a wife when she was accusing her husband for rape, the marital exemption was an existing law. But this was abolished later only after appearance of the Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex, and the whole idea when this second wave related to women's rights in fact got momentum. And it is around then only that apart from suffrage, the issue of marital relationship was gaining prominence. Another idea that came into reckoning was the state feminism. It happened in 1956 when the president of Egypt, Nasir, initiated state feminism, and he outlawed discrimination based on gender and granted women suffrage. In fact, there was a struggle going on then in Egypt, and in place of allowing women to participate in the political process, Nasir of Egypt granted state feminism which outlawed discrimination, but at the same time did not allow women to participate in the political process of the country. Another interesting book in 1963 appeared, The Feminine Mystique, and it helped the voice of discontent that the American women felt. If I talk about the third wave of struggle for the women's right, it is started in US in 1990s when a judicial committee was appointed, and the very composition of judicial committee was like this. They were all white, all male, right? And then a movement started in US which said that the Supreme Court of the United States had appointed this committee, which did not go beyond looking at white collar, upper middle class male or women even, and all members of the committee, they were male and they bore white complexions also. So this third wave of struggle emphasized the experiences of the upper middle class white women more than anything else. And it focused on micropolitics and challenged the second wave paradigm as to what was and what was not good for the women. At the same time, around that period of the third struggle itself, there came to notice of the world another interesting fact that many societies in the world, largely from Africa and Arab, they were practicing female genital mutilation also. So that also became an important issue of the struggle. The fourth wave of this struggle, it began around 2010-12 and it is associated with social media. I'm just trying to give you a little background. All of us have heard about use of technology in struggle for the women's right and use of Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and other platforms. And these platforms, what they were talking about was street and workplace harassment, campus sexual assaults, rape culture, scandals, abuses, murders of women and girls, and they galvanized the movement also. Some of the famous movements of this period have been No More Page 3, 10 hours of walking in New York as a woman, and Yes, All Women, 1 billion rising, etc., etc. A number of words also have come into existence: political movement, liberalism, liberal womenism. These are some of the words that have appeared, and I'll be talking about all these concepts. I just try to give an idea of how this struggle for the rights of women over a period of time, over last, we can say, almost 2 centuries has been happening in the world, and how this struggle has shifted from one point of universal suffrage or suffrage for women to the current kind of issues which relate to office work environment, and as I said, the even the issues related to the husband-wife relationship, what is happening in family setting, what is happening in work setting, right? What is happening on the streets also. We all know Nirbhaya, etc. They all stand somewhere as an evidence of what the whole world has been talking about and the kind of measures that governments have been compelled to take over this period of time. Coming to the empowerment dimension, I said, I've spoken about the struggle so far. But talking about empowerment, which I said in the beginning itself, which implies equipping and enabling women to take decisions of their life themselves, for their own selves, and also for the society, and also maybe for the nation building. Uh, we know, uh, as far as their rights are concerned, we need to understand the fundamental aspect of the thing. The fundamental aspect is that, as I said, that during several waves of their struggles, we have observed one, they have not been treated equally. Two, there has not been much of a difference between the treatment given to women and also treatment given to the or material aspects or the capital or the possessions. And this is why women at different stages of history. When we talk of medieval history, the harems of many kings, they were spoken with a feeling as if they spoke about the greatness of a king also. I think my remark about that definitely will go or travel much longer than I intend to say in words. So the basic issue has been the women's struggle has been all around fighting for their rights, which were not given. And we have seen that it has happened as a historical process. And not only that, they were not treated economically, they were not treated equally politically, and they have not been treated socially also. And this is why it has been an issue of male dominance largely in the world. And how could this dominance be perpetuated? All efforts, measures, laws, rules, and protocols were made like that. And this is what has figured in their struggle over time. The empowerment we know is a process which creates powers in individuals over their lives, societies, and communities. When people are empowered, they feel entitled, they feel liberated, as I said in the beginning, to take their own decisions with the sense of empowerment. And these decisions pertain to education, awareness, literacy, training, and those decisions which would definitely determine the course of one's life. The women are now under empowerment are supposed to redefine their gender roles, because as I said in the beginning also that many gender roles have been treated in a very stereotyped manner. To me, it appears that empowerment stands for self-respect also. And empowerment should not be treated as, as a product or as a final product. It should be treated as a process. And this is why when we talk of empowerment, we need to talk about the state of empowerment in a society over a time. And we can also have a relative scenario of more than one societies at one point of a time. This all is being explained so that the gender or empowerment dimension is not trivialized in the debates. We know the whole idea, some people say that this treatment which was extended to women at different stages was just to deny. There are different explanations, and I'll go about the economic explanations first. It refers to denial of economic empowerment to women, refers to denying them any right to control and benefit from resources, assets, income, and income earning capabilities. It also denies them the ability to manage risk and improve their economic status and so well-being. All nations, businesses, communities, they have been making their own codes, their own rules or laws for such denial. And when we have started with the process of empowerment, then definitely we are going in a different direction. Those of us who have an interest to know, we know that under sustainable development goals also, the women's rights are being discussed these days. I remember long before when I tried to a little dig at the economic explanations. I remember long before I read a paper which was published in Royal Journal. I was surprised to see why in a British journal, which is rated to be one among the toppest one in the world, uh, why a paper like why do people prefer a male child appeared so prominently. And the kind of explanations that I've tried to give, because it's a story about the a story about denying them access to resources, assets, capital, income earning capabilities, all that. This is why we have a preference for a male child as compared to a female child. Economic empowerment, we all understand, increases women's agency, access to formal government programs, mobilize outside the home and economic independence, and it also gives them purchasing power. And with this, it also somewhere at a social level, and also when I say social, that also means at family level, it also gives them bargaining power. So women's access to property inheritance, we know that for long, even in India after independence, their right to inherit property was not granted. It's only in the recent past that their rights over property of the parents now are treated equally, but in most of the cases, these do not actually reach the women. Similarly, their land rights were substantially restricted. Women were not allowed to have titles of the land in their own name for a very long period of time. And that is why capital accumulation led to gender inequalities. And when I will be discussing gender inequalities, I'll talk with figures how it has been happening in India's case. If we talk in terms of political empowerment, I have said in the beginning that the first wave of struggle itself was for the universal suffrage or the right to vote for women. And this is where the equality was totally denied. And we notice, even till date, I talk of the modern times, as of now in the world, if I talk about their representation in the different parliaments of the world, it stands at around 24 to 25%. Right. So we can check it with UNDP statistics also when they talk about empowerment dimension. So their political movement, we know, has been initially or was initially about right to vote. It then got raised to raising voice and opinion building and ability to run the office, that is representation of the women in the parliament, assembly. In India's case also we know uh, on number of occasions uh, their representation in parliament or state assemblies has been talked about. There is a view that they should be given a definite percentage of reservation, not less than one third of the total number of seats. But we look at the way the things have happened under Panchayati Raj institution, and all of us understand that wherever seats have been reserved for them, the way, in fact, their leadership has been used just as a proxy for their male counterparts. Similarly, if we talk of uh, what has happened at family or household level, we know uh, how the cases of divorce, how cases of domestic violence, how things related to property rights, they have been figuring uh, even in the current literature. Another interesting part is that how technology has helped or may help the empowerment of women. A little idea about that. We know digital skills can facilitate women's engagement. We know the world today, whether we talk of manufacturing, we talk of economic engagement, trade, investments, or we talk of one's employability at different places. It definitely relates to one's digital skills also. You know that Indians who are well trained in soft skills and digital skills, they are being welcomed all over the world. Barring COVID period, of course, when nobody is being welcomed anywhere. Right. But if we talk of in normalcy returning in few days or months time, will again be going back to the same world that where skilled manpower, and when I say skilled manpower, I essentially imply and most prominently imply the digital and the technology related skills. So women also, if they are skilled, and when I say so, let me be very clearly pointing out, even if we look at the parentage, in our case, in many developing societies of the world, we would notice that parents spend far lesser or invest far lesser on the education, skill, and training of a girl child than they spend on the training, skill, and education of a boy child. Because the women, we must try to understand these two very important dimensions of the problem. Women are not trained as that, investment is not made on that, and then in return they are also not expected to generate income as a result of this kind of education, training, or skills. We know, but how digital skills can make a difference? A little about that. And knowledge of ICT allows women to talk about their concerns, because the restricted freedom of speech does not last much in uh, in a technology environment, because technology environment gives them still more uh, let's say liberty. We have seen there are online networks also which allow women to talk about their concerns. I'll cite a very important example. What has happened in Iraq, that women took a struggle, and Kurdish regional government, which had to finally outlaw the practice of female genital mutilation. So this had happened in a country like Iran. We can imagine that what kind of uh, movement or what kind of mindset change can be brought about by this digital skills of women. We know the kind of exchanges that take place on mobile phones. We know there are both good and bad dimensions. Apparently, it appears that the rate of divorce in India is also increasing. But we must also understand, because women have become more vocal, they are telling their parents also on their mobile phones and also through channels of social media that what is the state of affairs in what is happening to them in in-laws families. Uh, Talking about the measurement of empowerment slightly, we all know that when we talk of measurement of empowerment, it is viewed in definite respects. The UNDP in 1990s started to have two indices primarily. One was Human Development Index, and after it they started to publish their data on Gender Development Index also. Now they publish data on uh, gender empowerment or women empowerment, and also inequality dimension. There is a big statistics with me, it drawn from UNDP itself. I'll just speak largely about India, what has been happening in India on gender empowerment related dimension. But towards the close, I would very briefly talk about what good also has happened in this context. In India, we know our Human Development Index right now is around 0.647 out of a total score or maximum score of 1. Our Gender Development Index or score is value is 0.574, whereas our male development index stands at 0.692. So one is as much minus from the average score as much the other is plus from the average score of the two. If I talk in terms of life expectancy, we know biologically women are supposed to live longer than their male counterparts. In India also we have achieved this stage that right now the women's life expectancy is 70.7 years, whereas male's life expectancy is 68.2 years. If I talk in terms of, because we know any development or right now UNDP's development index is based on 3 dimensions. The dimension 1 being health related or longevity related, the dimension 2 being knowledge related, which again has got 2 sub dimensions, life expectancy, which is expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling. If I talk of expected years of schooling for female, in India it should be 12.9 years. For males it should be 11, or it is 11.9 years. And when we talk of mean years of schooling, for females, the mean years of schooling is stand against expected years of schooling of 12.9 years at 4.7 years. And for males, the mean years of schooling is stand at 8.2 years against expectations of 11.9 years. And very importantly, this is the dimension on which I feel the women stand most discriminated, and this is where perhaps equality is going to be most sought in future also. I was tempted to see international statistics in this respect also, and I'll speak for a minute about that also. Women's per capita income right now in India, as per the latest report of UNDP, is $2,625 on a per capita basis on purchasing power parity basis, whereas the per capita male income in India is $10,712, which is nearly 4 times of the per capita women's income in Indian place. As I said that I was tempted to see the statistics for the developing countries and compare that with India's statistics. For developing countries, the average earning for females or per capita earning for females in developing countries is $6,804, whereas per capita male earning is $14,000. Then there are different groupings also, Arab states. Very surprisingly, what this difference in India is exactly matched by the statistics related to South Asia, and which is $2,639 for women and $10,693 for man. Though there is no country in the world, I could not observe even a single country in the world where per capita women's income is greater than their male counterpart. Everywhere the income of on per capita basis of males is much greater than that of their female counterparts, if we talk of the averages. So another interesting thing, that we could notice is that I speak from the point of view of gender inequality index. We notice, and in gender inequality, when there is 0, the score out of 1 is 0, then we'll say there is no inequality. We notice the more developed a country is, lesser is relatively the degree of inequality. The lesser the developed country, that's the normal phenomenon. Of course, there are exceptions, and those exceptions might exist because of various reasons. For example, several Muslim countries, despite having good human development, scoring well on human development index, but they are placed very poorly on gender development index. So, talking from India's point of view, our value on gender inequality index is right now, it is a high value, 0.501, which is almost 50% of the total one. We can understand how high it is, and our ranking is nearly 124 to 125th in terms of gender development index at the international level, out of a total list of almost 189 countries. If I look at the figures, our maternal mortality rate is still 174 per lakh live births. If I talk about, as I was talking about, the seats held by women in the parliament, in India's case, our statistics for 2018 is 11.7% of the total seats in the parliament are represented by women. If I talk from the point of view of population with at least secondary education, 39% women have, those who are 25 years and or more, 39% of them go up to secondary education, whereas in case of males, this ratio exists at 63.5%. And if I talk from the perspective of labor participation rate, the labor participation rate for females 15 years and above and up to 60 years of age is 23.6%, whereas in case of males, it is 78.6%. Now, this statistics very clearly reveals, to my surprise, we are one of the medium human development countries, and this statistics of ours matches and finally fits into the average of medium human development countries. When I say so, what I'm trying to say is that we are not towards the upper stairs of the medium human development countries. In this respect, we are just on the average of the medium human development countries. I think it is close to getting 5, and I would not like to take much time here. And I think that I have tried to flag few issues which are of vital concern. Few developments that have taken place are very, very clear. Number of thinkers have written in the recent past that women in India in particular, I mean, uh, they were treated, it is said, and we have a historical record of that, it is said that they possessed a greater degree of capability and promotion, or rather equality, let's say maybe 1000 or 2000 years back, but there came a stage in the history that perhaps they were made increasingly more unequal in the society. In the recent times, we are observing wherever women are going, whether we talk of higher education, we talk of research, we talk of secondary education. Many of us might have seen the CBSE results, which had been declared a day or two back, and we may have also witnessed how many girls have been, let's say, the toppers in different streams, in different schools and colleges of the university. So we can observe that. So they have been performing very well. Uh, Even in bureaucracy, I see lot many women are coming up. I see even in IIT campuses, in management campuses, in research area, in research domain in particular, they are performing exceedingly well. Professor Shukla would vouch that in our committees also women perform much more sincerely and much better than their male counterparts also. It's not just to make Professor Shukla happier than what she was, but it definitely just meant to say that they are definitely more sincere, and given a chance, they can definitely perform much better. And this is why I see in last 2 years they have been, I mean, the divisions related to women officers has come into existence, entire division in army. And earlier there used to be a saying that in Air Force, women cannot be made pilots. Now we have women fighter pilots also in Indian Army or Indian Air Force. Right. There used to be a defense minister of the country, Nirmala Sitharaman became the first woman defense minister of the country, and thereafter she became the finance minister also of the country, perhaps after Mrs. Gandhi. So these are the facts, and they have been performing very well. I think the whole story is about, as I said, our own underlying motives, whether we give them freedom, and if we do not permit them freedom, what is the underlying motive of ours that we don't want them to come out as a liberated child and try to get the best of their potentials? The answer lies very clearly that we have been suffering from a competitive or maybe a phenomenon at psychological level. Perhaps if they are given a chance, they may outclass us. I think we need to come out of this kind of psychological construct. It is high time that both the parts of the society are given equal chances to grow. And particularly in Indian context, I'll say that if we are not giving a fair chance to 48 to 49% of the population, perhaps we are undermining our capabilities of making capital and getting a much higher GDP for the economy. It is here that I would like to stop. Thanks to Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar Social Science University for giving me an opportunity to discuss all this on this occasion with all of you. Thank you very much.
थैंक यू सर। सर बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जैसा कि आपने बताया, उसमें भारत सहित वैश्विक स्तर पर महिला सशक्तिकरण के सामाजिक आर्थिक पहलुओं के साथ साथ जो विश्व स्तर की जो संस्थाएं हैं, उनके स्टेटिकल जो आंकड़े हैं, उसके आधार पर हमें ये जेंडर स्टडीज के विद्यार्थी होने के नाते और सामाजिक विज्ञान विश्वविद्यालय में काम करने के नाते हमें बहुत सारे मुद्दे मिले हैं, बहुत सारे की मिले हैं, इसमें हम महिला सशक्तिकरण की दिशा में शोध कर सकते हैं। आपका यह जो व्याख्यान है, ये वाकई में बहुत ही विविधतापूर्ण रहा है और हमें सोच के नए नए तरीके को उपयोग करते हुए हमें एक मौका मिला है। आपके व्याख्यान से हमने बहुत सारे पॉइंट्स किए हैं जिस पर हम आगे कार्य कर सकते हैं और आपका मार्गदर्शन भी हम चाहेंगे इस पे। आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। अब आज के अध्यक्षीय उद्बोधन के लिए ब्राउज की ऑनरेबल वाइस चांसलर को आमंत्रित करता हूँ।
नमस्कार सर।
नमस्कार।
मैं बहुत प्रसन्न हूँ कि मैंने एक प्योर सोशल साइंटिस्ट को जेंडर एक्सपर्ट में थोड़ी सी कोशिश की तब्दीली कराने की, लेकिन अंदाजा नहीं था कि थोड़ी तब्दीली इतने महत्वपूर्ण स्वरूप में, इतने उच्च उत्कृष्ट वैचारिक स्तर पर हम लोगों को गाइडेंस दे सकेगी। तो ये तो हम जितनी कोशिशें कर रहे थे सर, आपके भीतर का जो जेंडर सेंसिटिव व्यक्ति है और जो सोशल साइंटिस्ट है, वो हम सब बहुत उभर के देख रहे हैं और हमको बहुत सच में चीजें मिली। मैं आपसे शेयर करने की कोशिश करूं, ऑल्दो मैंने सब चीजें लिखते रहने की कोशिश की है आपको। यूजीसी ने कहा था कि 1-2 दिन के कुछ प्रोग्राम्स जेंडर स्टीरियोटाइप्स, जेंडर वाइसनेस पे किए जाएं, तो मुझे लगा कि ये बहुत अच्छा मौका है और कोविड-19 के जो चैलेंजेस हैं उनको अपॉर्चुनिटीज में बदलने का इससे बेहतर क्या मौका होगा कि अगर हमारी केंद्र सरकार, यूजीसी, आप सब इस चीज को चाह रहे हैं तो उसको और गहराई से समझ लिया जाए। इसीलिए पूरे जो प्रोग्राम्स हैं उसमें कुछ बड़ी अलग सी चीजें उभर के आई हैं। जैसे जो स्ट्रीट वेंडर्स हैं उनका जो जेंडर पर्सपेक्टिव है, जेंडर इश्यूज है, हो सकता है मेरी समझ सीमित हो, लेकिन ये बात रिसर्च में अभी कम उतनी गहराई से नजर आई है। तो इस पे चूंकि आपके सामने इस बात को इसलिए लाना चाहती हूँ कि जिस संस्था को आप इतना कुशल नेतृत्व दे रहे हैं, उस संस्था के माध्यम से अगर इस प्रकार का गहरा शोध करवाया जा सके, और हम सब लोग तो तैयार ही हैं, तो मुझे लगता है कि इंसानियत के हक में, मानवता के हक में, और स्पेशली इस कोविड-19 के दौर में जब हम सब चक्रव्यूह में हैं, तो जो नीचे तबके का व्यक्ति है, मैं निजी तौर पे नीचे तबके का किसी को नहीं मानती, लेकिन जो सामाजिक, आर्थिक और शैक्षिक दृष्टिकोण से पिछड़ा वर्ग है, जो हर दिन विवश है सड़कों पे बैठ के अपनी जीविका उपार्जन के लिए, तो कुछ अच्छा काम उनके हित में, कुछ पॉलिसी, कुछ मिनिमम वेजेस, उनका कुछ रजिस्ट्रेशन, ऐसे कुछ कराने के गंभीर प्रयास किए जा सकते हैं। एक और बड़ा मुद्दा इन दिनों के बयानों में उभर के आया, वो ये उभर पे आया कि सेना में महिलाओं की बढ़ती संख्या के मायने क्या है, मतलब क्या है, और इसको हम सब शिक्षक जगत के लोगों ने नहीं, सेना में ही महू में जो लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल कमांडेंट रहे हैं दुष्यंत सिंह जी, उन्होंने ही बड़े व्यापक से न तो दिया है बल्कि उसको उन्होंने दिया, मतलब हमको रिसर्च पेपर भी दिया है। क्योंकि इस पूरे में सभी से ये अनुरोध निरंतर किया गया कि इस पूरे 31 दिन की बातचीत के माध्यम से कुछ बहुत अच्छे से रिकमेंडेशंस अगर जा सकें तो, और वो हमें एक पेपर भी मिल सके, तो एक अच्छी किताब, एक अच्छी रिसर्च रिपोर्ट, एक अच्छी रिकमेंडेशन अपने देश का, विश्व के हित में। क्योंकि सर ये आधी आबादी का नहीं, पूरी आबादी का मुद्दा है, और पूरी आबादी माँ ही वो है जो पुत्र हो या पुत्री दुनिया से सबका परिचय कराती है, तो आधी आबादी का विषय नहीं हो सकता। तो उन्हीं सबके लिए जेंडर संवेदनशीलता का मैंने आपको जिक्र भी किया था। मैंने अपने सम्माननीय श्रद्धेय महामहिम जी से भी कहा कि मध्य प्रदेश में समस्त विश्वविद्यालयों की समस्त संकायों और महाविद्यालयों में जेंडर सेंसिटाइजेशन और वीमेन एम्पावरमेंट को एक फाउंडेशन कोर्स के तौर पे पढ़ाया जाए, तो सैद्धांतिक सहमति बनी है। लेकिन ये सब चूंकि रास्ते बहुत प्रयास और बहुत संघर्ष के हैं, आप बेहतर समझते हैं, तो ये सारी चीजें आगे जा रही हैं। एक और आपको चीज कहने की कोशिश करेंगे, कोविड-19 के दौर में जहां जेंडर सेंसिटाइजेशन और सोसाइटी के सेंसिटाइजेशन का मामला है, अवेयर करने का मामला है, तो आप जिस विश्वविद्यालय को बहुत करीब से देखते रहे हैं, उस विश्वविद्यालय ने आपकी इज्जत को रखने की पूरी कोशिश की, और वो ऐसे कि यहाँ के अभी छात्र और विद्यार्थी शोधार्थी कम है, लेकिन हम लोगों ने सिस्टम को इवॉल्व किया, और सबसे है उसको हमारी कमेटी ने परखा, वो सही है कि गलत है। क्योंकि आपसे निवेदन ये है कि आप आपके वाले 10 को भेजें तो 10 से 100 से 1000 लाख होते, 25 लाख। और ये कोशिश वो ही सामाजिक दायित्व वो था कि अगर बहुत सारे लोगों के पास, जिनके पास स्मार्टफोन नहीं है, जिनके पास आईटी की सुविधाएं नहीं है, उन तक भी वो सूचनाएं पहुंच सकें और इंसानियत के हक में हम लोग कोशिश कर सकें। सर आपकी जानकारी में जरूर होगा कि क्राइम अगेंस्ट वीमेन के अंतर्गत डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस सुसाइड इस बात यह है कि जो हम सब महिलाएं और पुरुष सभी जो एक रिश्तों में और परिवार व्यवस्था में विश्वास रखते हैं, उनको घर में रहना बहुत अच्छा लगता है काम करने के साथ साथ, लेकिन जब घर में अवसर रहने के मिले सभी को, तो ये कौन लोग हैं जिनके कारण डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस बढ़े? ड्रग्स का भी इस पे बहुत असर नजर आ रहा है, सुसाइड्स भी ज्यादा कमिट हो रहे हैं। मेरी एक विद्यार्थी है एडिशनल एसपी, वो इस पे काम कर रही हैं। तो कहीं ना कहीं प्रश्न समाज, और वो पूरे जो आप कह रहे थे ना ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट इंडिकेटर्स की बात, मानव मन, स्त्री और पुरुष जब तक दोनों ह्यूमन बीइंग एक समान ह्यूमन बीइंग्स के तौर पर प्रस्तुत नहीं होंगे, तब तक ये प्रश्न उपस्थित हैं, उपस्थित रहेंगे, खत्म नहीं किए जा सकते। सरकारें अपना काम करती हैं, संस्थाएं अपना काम करती हैं, लेकिन विश्वविद्यालयों की जिम्मेदारी ऐसे सामाजिक दायित्व बोले भाव इनकलकेट करना है कि वो आगे जाके चीजों को कर सके। आपने जिस तरह से प्रथम लहर, सेकेंड लहर, तीसरी लहर के माध्यम से पूरे वैश्विक परिदृश्य को सामने रखा, मैं बहुत बहुत अच्छे से याद कर रही थी कि चाहे भ्रूण गर्भजल परीक्षण का मामला हो, बलात्कार के कानूनों का मामला हो, लेकिन सर एक चीज बड़ी गंभीर है जिसपे मैं आपसे जरूर चिंता करने के लिए और ज्यादा कहूंगी कि इतने कानून बन गए, लेकिन कानून बनने के बाद ना तो बलात्कार रुका, ना गैंगरेप रुक रहे हैं, ना छेड़छाड़ रुक रही है। संस्थाओं में कमेटी बन गई, इंटरनल कंप्लेंट कमेटी, लेकिन संस्थाओं में भी ये घटनाएं नहीं रुक रही हैं। कुल मिला के कानूनों का जो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन है वो व्यक्तिपरक और कहीं कमजोर है, और एक पूरे जनमत का उसमें भूमिका नहीं नजर आती। जैसे स्वीकार्यता, कानून बन गया, स्वीकार्यता हो गई, अब वो तो बहुत सारे विविध चीजें हैं जिसपे आपसे मैं निरंतर बात करती रही हूँ, लेकिन सर चीजें अगर रुकने की जगह बढ़ रही हैं तो सवाल खड़े होते हैं कि अब क्या किया जाए। तो उसके बाद मुझे सिर्फ ऐसा ही लगता है कि जितनी बात को करा जाए, जितना वैचारिक यात्रा बढ़ेगी, कोई भी विचार अगर स्थिर रह गया तो हम उस विचार का विस्तार करेंगे स्वयं से, अपने परिवार से, समाज से। इसी सोच के साथ ये महीने भर का पूरा कार्यक्रम रखा कि रोज रोज कुछ बोलेंगे तो कुछ तो बात ठहरेगी, कुछ तो बात निकलेगी, कुछ तो चिंताएं बढ़ेंगी। और देखिए आज मैंने एक इतने विशिष्ट सोशल साइंटिस्ट से जेंडर पर्सपेक्टिव में दुनिया के पूरे परिदृश्य को समझ लिया, सुन लिया। रियली थैंकफुल हूँ। मुझे आपकी व्यस्तताओं के अंदाजा है, बहुत अच्छे से अंदाजा है, कभी कभी उनका हिस्सा भी बनती हूँ, लेकिन जो आपने रास्ते दिखाए हैं उन पे हम सब चलेंगे और आपके मार्गदर्शन की निरंतर अपेक्षा रहेगी। आपको बहुत बहुत प्रणाम।
मैम आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और निश्चित तौर पर सर ने बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण दिशाबोध और बहुत सारे रास्ते हमारे लिए खोले हैं। मैं अब कार्यक्रम की अगली कड़ी में हमारे ब्राउज के डीन प्रोफेसर किशोर जॉन सर को वोट ऑफ थैंक्स के लिए आमंत्रित करता हूँ।
सर नमस्कार। Thank you very much, Professor V.K. Malhotra, sir, Member Secretary, ICSSR, New Delhi, and thanks for sharing his experts' views on women empowerment in India, key issues, with us today. Thanks for sharing your sir valuable time with us, because we know that you are very much busy with ICSSR and its business. So, thank you very much again, sir, and thanks for rendering your feeling regarding relationship association with our university. As we know, and you also know, that university was a part of ICSSR till 2015. You have rightly said that the female should make decisions of life, family, and nations, and the women struggle has a long history for their rights. And you have narrated beautifully the different types of struggles and struggle and the history of struggle, including the many aspects like female rights to vote, equal rights, economic rights, and family laws. It is right that the empowering women is to equip and enable women. If we have equipped and enabled women in every sphere of life, means an empowerment was has been shifted rightly. It is true that we have to redefine the gender route to empower women. You have covered every single aspects of empowerment of women, and it is also true that the per capita of female income is lower than the male income. Women must give. You also suggested that if you want to make a empowered society, the women must be given even or fair chances to grow. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much again. And now I would like to thank Professor D.K. Verma, who is our senior faculty and dean, for welcome address. And not last and not least, I would like to render my thanks प्रोफेसर आशा शुक्ला, क्योंकि मैडम के ही मोटिवेशन से और उन्हीं के जो उत्साहवर्धन वो लगातार करते रहती है, उस कारण हम लोग ये एक महीने भर का पूरा प्रोग्राम हम यहाँ पर ऑर्गेनाइज कर पाए हैं और कर रहे हैं। और इसके साथ हम ये चाहते हैं कि जब हम पूरा अपना महीने भर का ये प्रोग्राम हम करेंगे सक्सेसफुली, उसके बाद हम इसकी रिपोर्ट्स यूजीसी ने जैसे हमको बोला है तो यूजीसी को तो हम जरूर से भेजेंगे। हम चाहते हैं कि हम इसकी रिपोर्ट एक आईसीएसएसआर को भी हम भेजें, ताकि आईसीएसएसआर जो उनका पब्लिकेशन जो है आईसीएसएसआर का, उसमें हमारी इस एक महीने के जितने कार्यक्रम है उसमें क्या व्यूज आए हैं, जितने एक्सपर्ट्स आए हैं उनके सारी उसमें डिटेल्स रहेगी। तो हम चाहते हैं कि वो उसको अपने पब्लिकेशन में वो रखे, ताकि आईसीएसआर के द्वारा ये पूरे भारत में और बाहर जहाँ भी अपनी आईसीएसआर के पब्लिकेशन चाहते हैं वहाँ पर हमारे इस काम को देखा जाए। और हम ये भी चाहते हैं सर कि हम आईसीएसआर के साथ में कुछ रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट्स और वो सारी चीज़ें हम करना, क्योंकि पहले अर्लियर यू कैन से बिफोर 2015 हम एक आईसीएसआर का पार्ट थे, और तो सारी जितने प्रोजेक्ट और रिसर्च हम आईसीएसआर के साथ मिलकर करते थे। तो अभी भी हम चाहते हैं, क्योंकि ये विश्वविद्यालय है, इट इज ओनली वन सिंगल यूनिवर्सिटी इन द फील्ड ऑफ सोशल साइंसेस, तो हम चाहते हैं कि हमारा वो आईसीएसआर के साथ में हो और प्रोजेक्ट्स हों और आईसीएसआर उसको हमको फंडिंग करे, उसमें मदद करे। थैंक यू वेरी मच, और थैंक यू वेरी मच सारे लोगों के लिए जो यहाँ पर हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं इस गूगल मीट प्लेटफॉर्म पे, और साथ में कुछ जो हमारे कुछ श्रोता और पार्टिसिपेंट्स हमारे साथ फेसबुक पर भी और यूट्यूब पर भी हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं, उनका भी धन्यवाद। थैंक यू वेरी मच सर।
थैंक यू सर, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। अब मैं कल के कार्यक्रम के लिए अपने जितने भी हमारे साथी जुड़े हैं, लगातार जुड़ रहे हैं, उनके लिए मैं बता दूं कि कल हमारे बीच श्री अखिलेश मिश्रा जी होंगे, जो एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी हैं मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स न्यू दिल्ली। सर हमसे ट्रेडिशन ऑफ जेंडर इक्वालिटी एंड इंडिया सॉफ्ट पावर एंड इंडियन डेवलपमेंट एंड विषय पे बात करेंगे, इंडियन डेवलपमेंट से आग्रह है, इससे बात करेंगे। आप सभी से आग्रह है इसी से जुड़ के हमारे साथ आप जुड़ें और सर को उनका भी जुड़ें व्याख्यान को। आप सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।